Welcome back to Counterpoint. We're discussing today Nazi resistance in World War II, the resistance to the Nazis. And joining me now to have that discussion is Amanda Achtman. Amanda, thanks again for coming on. And I've already learned so much in this first segment, and I'm looking forward to educating our viewers even further. You mentioned that there was the righteous among nations. Those were the resistance, the saints, the martyrs, the people who resisted the regime. Tell us about your research with some of these individuals and some anecdotes.
Sure. Well, there are a few key figures who I have focused on studying. As I mentioned, there were tens of thousands of figures of resistance in all walks of life and to all degrees, but there are some who really stand out above the rest for their leadership. And one of those whose names comes up again and again in this period is Blessed Clemens von Galen. Now, Blessed Clemens von Galen was the Bishop of Münster in Germany, and he became the bishop at the same year that Hitler was rising to power. And so they overlapped for a decade, of course, with completely divergent leadership styles. And the first thing that Bishop von Galen did was he opened a chapel of adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. And he thought, we must have a church where there will be continuous prayer. And so throughout the 30s, and even still today in this diocese, there is this church where there is this ongoing prayer. And Bishop von Galen had the audacity, he had the moral fortitude to speak out against the Nazi euthanasia program from the pulpit while he was the bishop in Münster.
Wow.
And of course, this was extremely risky to him to denounce the regime's secretive euthanasia program from the pulpit. And he did it in a rather clever way that was very effective. He said, wait a minute, look, people are being euthanized with disabilities, and we're going to have our soldiers, our sons and fathers and brothers come back from the war with disabilities. And are they going to be sent off to be euthanized? So that was how he put forward the argument that this concerns you. And people got so agitated that the euthanasia program became very unpopular and they were losing support in Germany. And so the Nazis actually suspended it. Now, unfortunately, those who had been involved in euthanasia went on to go do extremely horrible crimes in the concentration camps. Because, of course, we have to ask ourselves, what then does a person do when they're out of a job killing persons with disabilities and mental illness? They could not simply return to life as usual, and they went on to a further campaign of dehumanization, unfortunately. But nevertheless, in its initial iteration, the churches are remembered for being very effective in speaking out against this particular form of the degradation of the human person.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, because we often hear in media that, the Christians didn't do anything and they're complicit, but there was, in fact, in this case, a very vehement Christian resistance.
Certainly, we could never say that Christians did enough. And certainly, there was a lot of moral tepidity, cowardice. This, yes, must be reckoned with. And I do not intend to paint all Christians as the force of resistance that they needed to be, because, of course, more than 6 million Jews were killed. Many people were denounced by their neighbors. There were many acts of cowardice. But the reason why I am focused on the ethical exemplars is because we don't have much to learn from the cowards. We have to learn from the heroes. And so even if they are few, the light outshines the darkness. And that is who we need to focus our energy on. And honestly, from the depths of my soul, I believe that is what most honors victims, when we pay attention to the righteous figures and don't exaggerate in our moral imagination the acts of cowardice, but on the contrary, focus all our energies on the moral courage of the resistance. And so, yes, not to gloss over things, but really to hone our attention on who we actually want to emulate.
Right. Share with us some other historical figures of the resistance, this nasty regime. We only have about 30 seconds. So we'll continue after the break, but for this 30 seconds, please.
Well, there's the White Rose Resistance. The students, Hans and Sophie Scholl are symbols of them, but the student movement within Munich, the German students who distributed pamphlets denouncing the Nazis and showed a lot of courage as well as the students who they were. And in a certain sense, their attitude was, we're Christians and we're Germans. Therefore, we are responsible for Germany. And so they are figures who show the patriotism of ones who love their government, who love their country more than their government does,
Right.
through resisting the regime. So
Okay,
the White Rose Resistance is very notable here as well.
we're gonna pick this up in just a moment.